So let's log into this tool and see how the landing page looks like. On the landing page, we see a list of master agreements, or what we call as master lease agreements, and they have their IDs and their status with the description of what this master lease agreement is about. And on the right hand side, we see action center. Basically, it's a kind of a notification center of different things that need attention. Okay, so now let's get into this one of these master lease agreements and see what's inside a master lease agreement. This master lease agreement, we can add any comment when we want to. This is a demo of SLAN on 3rd of June 2018, and then we can add this to the master lease agreement, and now you see there is a comment. All right, now let's move on to what's inside this. The partner. Now, partner is the name of the vendor that we have this master lease agreement with, and then we have a list of users that have ability to perform actions and get some notifications. Then the next piece is the construct of this master lease agreement is the number of contracts which were executed under this master lease agreement. Master lease agreement is a broad agreement on terms and conditions, but the contract specifically talks about the financial conditions and terms of the lease. So let's go into one of these contracts. So now we are opening a contract, and then we see something called lease determination. So this lease determination is basically a kind of a questionnaire which tells us what are the different types of parameters related to this particular lease, and then also who has signed this lease. So it looks like here I have signed this lease agreement in Austin. We can also see that in this lease contract we have actually a contract embedded in here. So this is a physical copy or PDF of the document which we can attach to this agreement here, and we can add additional documents also. So it's kind of a document repository in that sense. And then let's look at the partners. It's the same vendor who is acting as a lessor in this case, and all the different levels of users that will have different authorizations for the purposes of their roles that they have in the workflow of a life cycle of a lease. And this includes the assessment approver, the classification approver, the contract approver, and a lease administrator. These are coming by default. Now looking at the accounting piece of it, we will see that in the accounting it talks about which cost center in SAP this lease agreement will be tied to, and there are a number of cost centers. Then we come to what's inside, what's the construct inside a contract, and then we see there are components. Now what is a component? These components are the different terms and conditions and asset characteristics. So whatever assets we are leasing, the characteristics of those are contained in this piece called a lease component. Now let's get into the lease component, and we see here we are leasing Xerox Facer 302 copier, and we are leasing one of those copiers. And then we can look at the terms and conditions of this lease is like $300 a month, and we are paying it monthly for 36 months from January 1st 2018 to December 31st 2020. And it also gives expected start and end date. Then these leases have to be, when we set up these terms, they need to be approved by the appropriate approver. Once the approval has been done, then we get these components grouped into what we call as an activation group. Let's talk about the activation group for a minute. Now, activation group are automatically created after approving a contract, where it groups the units that have terms and conditions with the same activation date. So this is grouping by activation date. And so now let's look inside what's in a activation group. So the first thing is accounting, so the accounting of this activation tells us the financial terms of this activation group, which includes the interest rate and how it is compounded, like annually and stuff like that. The terms and conditions basically talk about the unit rent that is paid, and also from what time to what time, that is the duration of the lease. The classification basically tells us what type of lease as per the new accounting standard this is. So this lease has been determined to be an operating lease from a GAAP perspective, and then we talk about the unit, which means the real assets that are contained within this lease. So here we see this asset contains a copier Xerox Facer 302, and then on this side we see the asset number. So when we look at this document, it tells us how the asset capitalization took place when this was received, and what is the right of use asset value. Now that we have seen the whole structure of leasing in SLAN, which starts from master lease agreement, flows down into individual contracts, the contracts which are consisting of components, and in the component we have asset activation groups. Within the activation group we have units, or the unit consists the list of actual assets that have been leased. And so now that all this has occurred, let us look at what is the schedule of different payments that it has generated. So let's look at that. So you can see that for this year, this is the schedule of payment by period. We can look at the all 3 years in one go, and if you want, we can export it to Excel and then see how it looks like. We can also look at how it will look like in GAAP. So the two accounting principles are treated parallelly and separately. Right? Let's look at what is that we have in terms of postings that were done, and let's look at the postings. And you can see that these have been posted. If you click at any of these, it will show you this rent that has been credited to this creditor, this test lender, our vendor. But this has been divided into two components: the liability for clearing account and the interest amount. So interest is separate from liability. That's what this document is telling you. And so now we can look at the accrual document, which basically gives us the accrual of the interest and the right of use liability as well. So now we can try to post a document. Let us see, we are in this period, fourth period. Let us try if we are able to post it. So I'm clicking on the posting button. It is telling you the document date was 4/1, whereas I'm actually posting on 6/4. So let me post that. The objects were modified successfully, and let us see if we have this. You see, this document number is generated. You can look at that. So it is telling you these 300 that were posted to this vendor. 253 were posted against the liability and 46 against the interest amount. And let us post the accrual also. So again, the accrual of 430 is posted on 6/4, and it will come back with a document number that it's generating. So here it comes, right? We can see the same entries through the gap also. Let us post the depreciation. So of the posting of document date, let's call it 3/31. We are posting it today, and let's see whether we are able to get a posting of the depreciation. Yes, so we have this depreciation asset for this asset number by this amount. Excellent. So now we have seen how this SLAN tool is able to work and generate a schedule of payments and calculate assets. Let's do one more thing now. So far we have seen a happy day scenario, like happy path scenario, everything is good. Now as in business, things change, and let us say now we are going to change this contract. So we say change contract, and then when you say change contract, then maybe you have changed lessor, and say lessor changed to the new party. And we say submit. Then again it's going to ask you whether we need to change this, and in the partner definition we say now we have another partner. And now we add a new partner, right? And now I need to change this for approval. So I send this to approval, and since I am the approver myself in this context, I approve this. It is going to ask me whether I want to merge. Say confirm. Perfect. So we are now good. So we can look at the components and the units, and look at the reports of this. So if I post this one now, and we'll see the document is now posted to a new vendor, right? I'll just to let you know that the last vendor that it was posted to was different, right? So this is how the change has occurred. Okay, so now let's talk about lease modification. In modification of lease, we could possibly be a situation where let's say we have a new contract rate. So now it's let's say 6.5% and new rate, and let's say we submit this. So this is actually a modification in the lease itself rather than a contract modification. So now we need to send it to approval, and it has been sent, and now you see it's in my approval bucket, so I'm approving this. Now we need to send it for assessment. So we are sending it for assessment as of 1st of June, and we submit the assessment. Right. And now it's going to generate the schedule based on the new rates and saying pending assessment. So I need to approve the assessment. So I'm approving it. And then I have to confirm the classification. And the classification. I have to click on the complete assessment and say, is the change complete? Say yes. So now this contract is operating and active under the new So we can see that the interest rate has now changed to from 6.24 to 6.5, right? So this is how the modifications takes place. Now let's look at some of the reports or disclosures that are coming out of SLAN. Okay, so let us see what are the out-of-box disclosure reports. You might be interested in those. So let us say I want to see, so there are disconnected system. This is the SAP connected system, and I want to see all the reports. So for company code 1000 for the US GAAP, and then I want to see everything for in the Canadian dollars. Let me generate this report. How much time it takes to generate the reports? I think it's super fast. You'll be able to see it in in a matter of seconds. So it's ready now. Let us have a look at this report. So here is our report, right? So it gives a complete report of short-term liabilities, long-term liabilities, and opening balances, right of use, assets, costs, cash flow at aggregated level, and it gives you details of all the contracts within that. So that's the required disclosure at this time that is known, and this is the report for that. Okay, let us see what else do we have. Other than disclosures, we have some very interesting dashboards. So let us say we want to get a list of all the units that we have, which is actually by asset classes we have, by the cost center. Let us look at a dashboard report of all the contracts that we have. So it says how many contracts are operating, how many are still being set up. So on the click of a button, you get a pretty good dashboard that helps you to manage your leases. So that's about it for now, and let's see if you have any more questions. Session. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye bye.